Let's welcome in our next guest, Michael Noll from the Apollo Theater. They've got a big day today, and at 4 o'clock, a very big moment. Michael, good morning. How are you, sir?
Okay. Well, the climate took the last marquee down.
The climate did take your last. What year was that?
1987.
And what happened in 1987?
Well, my daughter was born on February 19th, and in May, the marquee came crashing down.
Was it a big storm?
Yeah, it was a big windstorm. Like the wind down Martin Street is like a canyon, and we had a torrential downpour.
Oh, my goodness.
And so it fell down in front of the building. We had people inside that couldn't get out.
You know, there's a strong wind warning, dangerous wind warning for it today that kicks in right about now, 9 o'clock.
Of course,
50 to 60 mile an hour winds, dude.
Of course, and I've got Craig Collis and his crew from McGinney's down there putting the woodworking, adding woodworking in the front where we have to fill in the gaps before the marquee people come back and finish up the trim. I mean, the marquee's done. It's up and it's operating, but we have some wood trimming and tying into the building that has to still be done.
What time's your ceremony today, 4?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And who's going to be there?
Well, our board members are going to be there, and I've invited the city and the county and to come, and we're just going to do black out the marquee. The marquee will be blacked out, and we'll cut the ribbon. When the ribbon gets cut, the marquee will light up, and the sign will go rolling.
How long?
And we'll have some champagne there.
How long was the sign up before 1987 storm brought it down?
Well, there was a controversy about whether we're going to put a marquee back up or not. I had people come up to me and say, "Well, the historic Apollo Civic Theater was built in 1913 and was built without a marquee," and I said, "Yeah, that's correct, but the marquees didn't come into effect until around the 1920s. They came in with the automobile. Theaters put them on the front because the automobile traffic, they wanted to attract people to the theater. So in 1932, the Warner Brothers Corporation, because you hear the Fox in New York, the Warner down in Washington, D.C. and all that. Well, what the movie studios used to do back in the 20s and 30s and 40s is they used to lease theaters in areas and to show their movies. So the Apollo was leased by the Warner Corporation from 1932 to 1942, and in 1936 they put a marquee up on the front of the building. Okay.
And this marquee, the funds for it came from who and where?
Marquees came from the Berkeley County Commission. They have a fund in there called the Quality of Life, and they awarded that money out of that back in 2022. Mm-hmm. And it was actually an interesting fact. My mother, she's passed away, but she wrote many letters on doing the marquee, and we just didn't get the funding. And then one day, Dan Doyer and Roger Engel walked out of the CBB after one of the board meetings, and Dan looked up the street and told Roger, he says, that theater would look good if it had a marquee on the front of it. And Roger says, well, all we need is the money. And they contacted me and they said, do you can you come and make a presentation? I said, when? Well, you need to. I said, I've already got it. I have been working on this thing for a number of years, and every year I would call the sign company out in Ohio and update the proposal. And so I had a current proposal, so I was able to walk over there and tell them how much it was costing, and they gave us $245,000 toward the $250,000 to put it up.
And is that the final cost to install it and everything?
Yeah, $250. Yeah, because you had the sign cost, and we had to do the electricity and a lot of the woodwork around the operation. And then we also added 2 LCD screens. The old one only had a signage on the one side going up to Queen Street. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, we just put them on both sides so people coming up from the train station can see it. So they've got 2 LCD screens.
So there'll be a totally electronic.
Electronic. No longer does my wife have to hold the ladder, and I climb up the ladder while the.
That is true. I mean, you guys, if you are involved with the Apollo, you know how much the Knolls have
Climb ladders.
have climbed ladders and run up and down the aisles and got the stage together. It's amazing.
Yeah, if you would see the final show, the final act of the show when it was closing, my wife and I would be out there after intermission changing the sign out, so then when the people came out after the show, it had the next show up. Now all I do is just
Hit a button.
The subplot is how much we trust our spouses.
Yeah, that's right, Bill.
You said it, Bill. You said it. Yeah. So $250 to put it up. Is there an additional amount of electric bill that you've had to calculate to funnel this into your budget?
Oh, it's LED, so
Not much.
So that it won't be all that much. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and it runs until about midnight and then shuts off for 6 hours and then starts back up at 6 in the morning.
What's the size of it?
It's a 38 feet across and it comes out around 14 feet out over the sidewalk. Yeah.
How tall is it?
It's 14 feet off the ground.
14 feet off the ground,
yeah.
but then the width of the sign as it's displaying.
The
something.
displays is about 4 feet.
So about 38 by 4.
Yeah.
That's a good size sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. What will you have on there to promote?
Well, what we've done is, for years I've been saying I need help. So we've put an executive director down there now because I want this thing to continue. So we have Aubrey Irving, who's back. She is the executive director and also the executive director of the By George Museum, because By George the museum was closed during the pandemic, and so the board there asked her to come on in part-time. So then we hired her part-time, so she's part-time there and part-time up there, and we're doing collaboration between the By George and that, where when we had some of our youth shows that I send over the kids to talk about youth, well, we had Rosemont, part of Rosemont going to the By George Museum for a function, and then they were at the Apollo, and then the second show, those kids that were at the Apollo went down to the By George and up, and we're working with the Roundhouse, so they won't only have up on the marquee activities that are going on at the Apollo, but also what's going on at the By George and even the Roundhouse. If we have any functions going on.
Will you have commercial sponsorship on the sign?
Well, we've talked about it in letting charging people to making funds for that. Yeah.
Got to raise a little scratch.
Where do you get? I'm sorry, Maria. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, and what about other productions? I mean, the Apollo was not originally, but obviously stage productions are predominant. What's done at the Apollo, but there's also movies now.
Oh yeah,
I've seen. Yeah.
Well, the CVB awarded us funding a few years ago, and we were able to take $10,000 of that and buy a brand new high definition projector. And so we've showed Gone with the Wind, and we just recently showed
Back to the Future. Yeah.
And we had and one of our parents knew a person that had a DeLorean car, and so they brought it down to the Apollo. He brought it down, and we had a static display out front. And so we have free movies coming. We have concerts. I've always wanted to continue the concerts. Like we have concerts at the park, we have concerts down in Main Street. But then I said, when the fall comes, concerts dry up. So I said we need to continue doing that in the Apollo. So we're doing concerts on there. We actually have on coming up, I think on February 2nd, Robbie Lyman, who's coming in and doing a night with evening with Buddy Holly. And the thing about it's not just music from Buddy Holly. I really like what I had Randy in before with the show, and what he actually does is he'll talk about Buddy Holly and the Crickets and how they got together and all the stories that they had and going out in the concerts and how they developed their music.
Michael, do you do any collaborative work with the old Opera House in Shepherdstown?
Not in Shepherdstown, but we work with the people over at the Opera House in Charlestown. We collaborate back and forth on that, and we have people that are down there and come up and work at our theater. Yeah, I have, but I did go down to the Opera House. You know, they just made it to the our historic trail in our theaters, because the Apollo is part of the historic trail of all historic theaters, and the Opera House in Shepherdstown just got on that, and I really like what he did. He really set the facility up in a small venue space. He has cameras up there that he can do conferences, and I went down to see part of the contemporary theater. I had some programs there. We've talked about. I've talked to the contemporary theater about bringing some of the reading theaters and stuff to the Apollo, because we want to expand what the contemporary theater is doing, because they mostly the summertime, but they've been talking about expanding the programming the year round.
So what do you think, Mike, if you had to sum it all up, what do you think the marquee means to the Apollo, its future?
It's just its place in Martinsburg. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what I said is, when that marquee dropped off the building, we actually lost our identity. I mean, you know, people would drive by the theater and not
know what it was.
Not know what it was, and you know, somebody says, "Are you going to cover the theater up and cover the marquee up?" Well, when we put it up and we turned it on the first time, I haven't turned it off yet. I mean. It really has lit up the thing. I've got people driving by the theater. They're blowing their horns. They're calling me on the phone. Ticket sales are picking up. I've seen a bump up in ticket sales, and so it really is put life back in.
It's a visual.
It's a visual, but not only, you know, it's not only about the Apollo, but it's about downtown Martinsburg. It's you know, I always say that Harriet Johnson, you know, really got behind and got that street, that Martin Street redone, because I don't think it would have been as much of an impact putting that marquee on it if we hadn't got Martin Street done. But with Martin Street being remodeled and with the marquee, and the fact we've got Stonies and bricks and the event center and things going, we really are doing a lot of things in Martinsburg, and also they've recognized that the Apollo is an economic driver, because when we put people in the movies, and when we have our concerts, when we have our kids program, we're putting people in restaurants, we're bringing people downtown. So it's really a collaborative type effort. And, you know, working with the Roundhouse and the By George, we can. There's a lot of activities that are going on, and plus, with Aubrey being on board, we've hired. We've also hired a part-time person to take her position as over the youth group, to be a coordinator for the youth program. And then we've got Sarah Selleck, who's one of our season directors, who's back doing that we've hired part-time to set up our artistic program, to put our main stage shows back up. So we used to have 6 shows. We're only doing 3 shows. We're doing Almost Maine. It's coming up in February. That's our main stage show, and then next season we're putting our next season together, which will be announcing soon for that, and she's working on that.
If any of our listeners or viewers have not been to a show at the Apollo, I would highly recommend. I mean, there's something about live theater, live community theater, that really makes a difference. Truth be told, I spent 8 summers sitting in the audience when my daughter participated in the Youth Summer Workshop, which is also an incredible treasure to the community, and we had a lot of good times in there. So
and you know, we've expanded that program. We've expanded
Right.
that program. We've got the junior program that we do, that my daughter directs in the fall and the spring, where we do kids from 5th grade to 12th grade. Then we also added a kids version, because now we start them in kindergarten and go kindergarten to 4th grade. And we've just recently met yesterday, where we're putting together a day show program, where we have kids that are in day school and are taught at home. We're going to have another program for kids on the day program.
By the way, at 4 o'clock today, the Apollo will unveil their new marquee, 38 years just about